For decades, medical science and popular culture have operated on a single, shared assumption. If you severely damage your liver, heavy alcohol is the culprit. It made sense. The liver is the body's primary metabolic engine and ultimate detoxifier, an uncomplaining workhorse responsible for filtering out the toxins we ingest. But this data visualization tells a very different story. Looking at this grid of the global adult population, exactly 1 out of every 4 silhouettes is now highlighted, representing a 25% global rate of liver disease. And the vast majority of these individuals drink little to no alcohol. This shift in patient profiles led to a new medical classification, metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, or MASLD. If a quarter of the global population is walking around with a failing vital organ, why aren't hospitals overflowing with liver patients? How does a pandemic this massive stay completely invisible? The primary driver of modern fatty liver disease is not dietary fat. It is sugar, specifically high-fructose corn syrup. This side-by-side flow visualization shows why. On the left, glucose smoothly distributes across the body because every single cell can use it for energy. On the right, fructose operates differently. It creates a metabolic bottleneck, funneling into the only organ capable of processing it, the liver. When high amounts of fructose are consumed through everyday sodas, juices, and processed snacks, that single central organ is immediately overwhelmed and begins rejecting the massive influx. To handle the sudden overload, the organ initiates a process called de novo lipogenesis. It takes the excess fructose and converts it directly into blocks of liver fat, which begin to encase the organ's own tissues. The disease initiates stealthily because the very mechanism causing the damage is hidden inside highly normalized everyday dietary habits. We often assume that metabolic illness is always visible. We look for external weight gain as a definitive marker of internal health. Millions of people fall into what clinicians call the TOFI profile, thin outside, fat inside. An individual can appear athletic and lean on the surface while harboring significant internal metabolic damage. This cross-section visual contrasts the two types of fat. On the surface, the subcutaneous tissue remains thin, but deep in the abdomen, out of sight, a dense layer of visceral fat is expanding and packing tightly around the organs. This hidden visceral fat acts as a metabolic disruptor. It damages the adjacent liver tissue and triggers insulin resistance, which then spreads to the rest of the body. Because the individual maintains an athletic appearance, their outward fitness acts as a form of camouflage, masking the accumulation of visceral fat and metabolic damage. The liver possesses an anatomical trait that makes it uniquely vulnerable to silent damage. It lacks pain receptors. As fat cells multiply and choke the organ, no neurological distress signals are sent to the brain. A person can accumulate dangerous levels of liver fat for 10 to 15 years without ever feeling an ache, a cramp, or a sharp pain in their abdomen. When the liver becomes heavily congested with fat, its capacity to operate as the body's main metabolic engine drops. This leads to a measurable decrease in cellular energy production. This energy drop manifests as chronic, unexplained afternoon fatigue and intense brain fog, an exhaustion that no amount of extra sleep can resolve. Patients often attribute these symptoms to normal aging or a stressful schedule. By misdirecting the patient's attention, the disease secures the years it needs to progress unchallenged. A decade of unchecked, low-grade internal inflammation eventually demands a physical toll. Looking at this topographic view of liver tissue, we can see the continuous inflammation forcing the smooth, healthy cells to scar over. Rigid, intersecting lines replace functional tissue, advancing the disease into a stage known as fibrosis. If fibrosis continues to spread across the organ, it leads to the final stages, cirrhosis and total liver failure. The danger of this silent killer is its timing. By the time it finally forces you to notice it, the damage has often become permanent. Despite the threat of scarring, the liver holds a specific biological advantage. It is the only organ capable of complete regeneration. This regeneration process begins by stopping the source of inflammation. Cutting out refined fructose halts the cycle of fat creation in the liver, preventing new damage from occurring. To address the fat already stored in the organ, intermittent fasting can be used to clear out the liver's glycogen reserves. Once those reserves are empty, the body looks for a new fuel source. By supporting mitochondrial health, the body can effectively switch to burning off the accumulated liver fat for energy. This removal of fat stops the inflammation cycle, allowing the liver's natural regenerative cells to replace damaged tissue with healthy, functional cells. MASLD thrives when its causes are ignored. By identifying the biological drivers of the disease, we gain tools to halt the inflammation and activate the liver's natural ability to heal.